Hi, this is Pierre Delacote working at Planet Technologies. I wanted to talk today about how do you bring teams to the next level. So we all know that Teams has huge success, and probably the success is due to COVID and the fact that we need to work remotely. So we deploy Teams mainly for most of our customers for meetings and chat. But adoption doesn't mean success. Here, the adoption was because there was no other choice except choosing another platform. So there's still some work to be done here, even if it's really Teams meetings and Teams chat as a tool is really straightforward. I don't think you need any training on that. Maybe need some information, but it's pretty straightforward and it's really easy to use. You might need to work, even if you're used to Teams, it's around Teams. One good example, and Microsoft disclosed a study recently on the well-being of remote worker, and the findings are that there's an increase in burnout due to COVID and due to remote working. And part of it is the fact that you're in meetings back to back, and people are trying to attend all the meetings because they don't want to miss anything or they want to be viewing the meetings, depending on the culture of the organization they're working with or for. There are some behaviors where people are burned out because they're constantly in every meetings, and also that's my experience. I can see that people are multitasking. Even I've seen people turning on their webcam and still multitasking on an external screen or on their phone. So this situation of remote work, working from home, inevitably will bring the multitasking in the equation. Even before COVID, some people were in meetings multitasking on their smartphone, but it's even worse in remote meetings because nobody can see them if they don't turn on the camera, or they can even with the camera on, they can be discreet. And so there's more and more multitasking, and multitasking, the neurosciences showed us that it's really bad for people. You know, the example of multitasking with your smartphone, texting while driving, you feel in control. A lot of people think there's no problem with it, but there is a problem. You cannot focus. The science are really explicit about that. You cannot multitask on two important things. It's only, I don't remember the percentage of the population, but very few percentage of the population, like 5% who can do that. So multitasking is really bad, and not only it's dangerous when you're driving a car, but also it can bring anxiety. It can bring addiction, substance abuse. There are studies that show that it can bring depression. So be vigilant about that, because since now online meetings are everywhere all the time, you might need to rethink how you communicate with people, how you communicate on best practices. It's an HR job actually, but it's everyone's job. First to be aware, and as a manager to explain what are the best practices and explain what are the consequences, and also shorten the meetings. A lot of companies are reducing the length of their meetings. Also, I recommend not to go to a meeting if you don't speak into the meetings. Ask people to record it, and you can fast forward it. You can see the transcript with stream. There are tons of way to mitigate this problem of having to attend a lot of meetings. So meetings, very successful, but it can have bad consequences on the long term if you don't have a strategy around meetings. And then collaboration. So collaboration, teams for collaboration is teams with channels. We have a lot of customers who are using it less, quite frankly, less than the Teams meeting and chat. And rarely we are using Teams in Teams for collaboration in an optimized way. I think it's way more complicated to raise success, first adoption and then success for Teams for collaboration, because it's a shift in the culture. Before we were, for years, for decades, we were using Outlook to collaborate, send email back and forth. First with bad habits, attaching a document to email. Then we changed a little bit. We add a link to a SharePoint document to have just one version, but still we are going back and forth with CC, forward, BCC email, and so it's a madness. It's a bad way to collaborate. It fills your inbox. You're buried in emails. You don't know where to prioritize, where to focus, how to prioritize. This is mainly why people feel overwhelmed with information. And Teams, on the other side, it brings transparency. Everybody has access to everything in the team, and the back and forth discussion are visible. They're threaded in conversation. They're segmented by channel. So channel is a work stream. So you look at what is interesting for you right away. You don't have to triage it like you do in your inbox. So the biggest difficulty in Teams for collaboration is to agree on the way you're going to organize your teams. What channels, what are the purpose of the channels, how you organize a folder, what times are you going to put, and make people understand how you navigate what work in a team. So Teams for collaboration is about collaboration. So it's about people agreeing, compromising. So it's hard. And I think it's what takes the longest time to succeed, because it needs some fine tuning. It also needs a leadership to shift the culture from the email, communicating through email, to communicate through Teams and working together through Teams. So definitely it takes more time. So there's a lot of things to be done here to rinse and repeat how you collaborate, what are the best practices. Also capture good success and share them with other business units and so on. The third layer of Teams that I guess we forget, and it's normal to talk about or to use at the beginning of a project, except for organization who wants to have a disruption, is Teams as a platform. And Teams as a platform is becoming more and more important, and there's more and more features, and it's more and more integrated, it's more and more powerful. It's the ability to take a process and automate it in a way and bring this process in Teams so you can add context to this process like a conversation. So you bring around the process, you bring people, the context, the conversation. So it's a human and process interaction. And that's what brings the most value when you can bring both. And business processes can save 1,000 times. IT has been built for that. You optimize building processes, automate processes. But sometimes processes can be really complicated to develop, and sometimes you try to develop it, but it doesn't correspond to the real need, or there's some technical issue. With Teams as a platform, you leverage Power Automate and Power Apps and other Power tools from the Power Platform, and you integrate in Teams in two ways. There's what Microsoft call through I try to remember the term they're using, citizen developers approach. So what I would call power users, what we call in the past power users, so people who don't have really skills in development, they're not developer, but they're tech savvy enough to understand a little bit of code, really basic code. So that's one way to build an app and to integrate it in Teams. You can really do things without any code. And Microsoft is providing a lot of examples, so you should take a look at it, because some basic process can be created like that, just using a wizard. Next. And the other option is to work with developers who can enhance the platform with some development and Teams. Teams will bring the context. I will give you an example. I read an article, an hospital build a bot in Teams that when you were typing the name of the patient, it will go in the back end, retrieve the information, the file for the patient with all the information, and then the physician could look at the patient, see the x-ray, whatever. All the information was in Teams. What it means, it was in Teams, it was on his smartphone. And then what Teams is going to bring here? Okay, there's a bot, but you can have a bot somewhere else. But here in Teams, you can, from this file, from this information, this patient information, you're reading something that you're not sure. And what you can do is you can add mention within this conversation, because it's a conversation, the bot is a conversation. You can add mention a specialist and ask him, can you help me to figure out this, I don't know, this dosage looks weird. Can you explain me why there is this dosage, or what is your opinion on that? So what happens here is, on the other hand, first, the person doesn't have to answer a call and have a long discussion. So you're going to re-explain what your question is about, who's the patient. On the other side, the specialist has his smartphone too, and he can see not only the question, but he can see the patient file, because he's in the context of the conversation. That's the power of Teams. And the combination with the automation of this process is bot, retrieving information from the backend, and the person, that's where the power is. And that kind of process are everywhere. There's an abundance of process you can build. So I will give you some ideas of how you can manage this transition to go to Teams as a platform in an organized way. So to me, when you talk about the processes, there are three things involved. There are the people, the process, and the tools. First, try to understand the tools. So your IT department should try to understand the tools. What are the tools involved? What are the limits? What are the potential? How does it work? So need to learn those tools. So mainly it's Teams as a platform, Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agent, and there are other features, but take a look at that. There's really Microsoft Learning is a really good platform, and there's a lot of things you can discover, and you can ask also specialists to help you discover that. We organize, for example, one-day training to ramp up on those technologies. So not only you should learn, but you need to also see. Do, don't try to reinvent the the the, the wheel, because um, there's a big community which is driven by Microsoft, and people are building templates already made, and you just have, for example, I use a template to post my when I post something in YouTube, my video in YouTube, then I build a template with Power Automate that takes the video and put it in Teams, so my colleague can see the latest video that I'm shooting. And I'm not a developer, so it's just a few click, and I shoot a video to explain how I did it. So watch what others are doing. The community is bringing a lot of value. Follow the community. There are a lot of experts who are very talkative about what they're doing. They can give you ideas. You can find expertise. You can ask questions, have answers. So that's the tools part. The people part is important, because it's really Power Automate, Power Apps is really low code, no code platform. It's not only that, because there are some limitations. So when you want to go beyond those limitations, you need the help of the developer. But let's focus on the power user or the citizen developers. So here you need to identify them. It's not easy to identify who's tech savvy enough, and also you need to recruit them. So because once you identify all the potential power users, you need to recruit them. That means you want for them to be representative of your business units, all the processes that are important in your organization. So recruit them and then train them how to use the platform, not with developer skills, but the basic things, what they can do, and first build some awareness about what they can do, and then train them. And we provide at Planet, we provide that kind of training, and and then also explain the governance, because you don't want a sprawl of applications just like with Access, Microsoft Access. So you need to explain what is a governance, how to build an app, and how to secure it, or how to avoid the sprawl, and so on. On the process side, that's probably the most important. And the difficulty here is to identify what is the right process, because there's probably tons of processes. That's why there were so many Access database, Excel with macros, because there's always something specific in one place, and it's different from another place. So I will recommend you to identify all those processes with the business owners, put everyone around the table, try to list all those processes, brainstorm, use whiteboard to brainstorm what are the different processes that are on top of your mind, and then try to prioritize them. What does it mean? That means I use two criteria to prioritize them. What will save time to end users, to people? And what is the complexity of what you're trying to build, the process you're trying to automate? And then when it's simple and brings a lot of value, give it to the power users, and they're going to work with the business owners and some users, what I call a panel of users, so to be sure that the process you're building is what people are expecting. And when it's more complicated but still bring a lot of value, then try to invite developers if possible. Obviously, you won't have a lot of developers while you can have a lot of power user, so it's a balance. Try to identify that and prioritize that, make a map and say, okay, we start here with these people and we start here with these people. That's a way to really create momentum. And another way to create momentum around Teams as a platform is to organize an hackathon. So an hackathon is taking 1 or 2 days, sometimes longer, but let's say 1 or 2 days, where you give a chance to those people, the power users. You bring also the business owners, um, and some decision maker, and you give them a challenge to build an app in 1 day, but a real app on their environment. And you train them before, but then you challenge them to do that during a day or two. So it's time constraints. There's a time constraint, and you invite SMEs, or subject matter expert developers, to be able to help them, guide them, and then at the end of the hackathon, then you vote. So there's a jury, the decision maker usually, who votes for the best app, and also the rest of the people who are attending to the hackathon vote. So they have a weight, and then you have, that way you created some sort of excitement, a special day where people are in a community of building process for the enterprise in a funny way. So that was my advice. Teams meeting, okay, large deployment, large usage, huge consumption, but a lot of fatigue. Look at that. Teams for collaboration, still in the process of shifting the culture. So try to work, especially with HR, work with manager, and work with Teams members, or to get the best value of Teams, or to understand the best experience and share that with all the business unit. And Teams as a platform, it's pretty new, even if it was there from the beginning, but it's more and more powerful, more and more integrated. I have a strategy around it, and you'll see that bringing business processes into life and adding the context of a conversation in a process can save tons of times, and it brings a lot of value. It can be really disruptive and in a positive way for the business. So I hope this was useful. I will share soon a blog post on that subject. See you.